Hey, so if you were here last week or if you were not with us last week, we started talking about the idea of foundations. If you were here, and that what is underneath really does matter. And so we were in Psalm 146 if you were here last week, and we really talked about two primary foundations that we want to start making sure that everything we do over this next year is built on. The first is that SEC will be a church that praises God alone in everything we do. Now, look, what that means is it means that in every song, in every word, in every prayer, in every deed, every act of service, like what we're doing today, whether it's in giving, whether it's in secret, or whether it's in public, that what we want to make sure is that we glorify and we honor God above all things. SEC will be a church that we honor and glorify God in everything that we do. But we also said that there was a second foundation in Psalm 146 that we want to stand on. And it's that SEC will be a church that follows and trusts Jesus above everything else and everyone else. In other words, that we're not going to put our trust in men. We're not going to put it in politicians. We're not going to put it in governments. We're not going to put it in jobs. We're going to put our trust and we are going to follow Jesus above everything else and everyone else. Because the truth is that our plans and our power as men fade, but the plans and the promise of God endure forever. He is faithful, we said last week, if you were here, to finish what he starts. But you know what's interesting about a foundation, as I thought about that more this week, is that often we don't think about foundations very much, do we? In fact, what catches our eye is the rest of the building, isn't it? It's aesthetic, it's its curb appeal, it's the design, it's the size, it's the height, it's whether or not it's cute, right? If you're a Joanna Gaines fan, it's if it's white or one of those other colors that we don't even talk about. But like, what catches us is not the foundation. What catches us is the rest of the building. In fact, I would suggest to you that I think that there are really only two times in my life that I even have thought about the foundation of the house. The first is when there was a problem, right? When you notice that something's wrong, when you see cracks in the wall or cracks above the doors, or something looks as if it's shifted, or all of a sudden a door won't close, then you start thinking about the foundation. You start going to look to see if there's something wrong. The other time is when you buy a house. When a house has captured your attention, right? When you like what you see enough that you want to make it your own, then you're super concerned about the foundation. You hire people to come in and look at the foundation. You take pictures of the foundation. Why? Because you want to make sure that what you see is supported by what you don't see. You want to make sure that what's underneath matches and can support what's on top. Because if it's going to be yours, then you want to make sure that the foundation is right, that it's deep enough and wide enough and strong enough to sustain the house that you see, the building that you love. Peter put it this way. I love this verse. It's one of my favorites in 1 Peter chapter 3:15. He says, "But in your hearts honor Christ the Lord as holy, always being prepared to make a defense to anyone who asks you for a reason for the hope that is in you." In other words, what Peter is saying is, look, honor God, honor Jesus in everything that you do, and live in such a way, Peter says, that others will see it and they will ask you why you live that way. That your life will be so filled of hope that others will see it and they'll want to know why. They'll see the outside and they'll want to know about the foundation underneath. That's why we do days like today. It's not to get press or publicity. It's not because we're just like phenomenal people. We're really not at all. It's not because we want to try to earn, right, God's love. It's not because we do it because we want people to think well of us in our community. The reason we do days like today, the reasons we go and we do disaster relief, is because we want to live lives that are so attractive, so beautiful, so mesmerizing, that people look at it and they want to know the reason. They want to know the foundation that's underneath. And look, I was reminded this week that in a world that is far too full of hate and anger and violence and prejudice and sadness and grief and anxiety today, right? In a world that's filled with way too much selfishness, way too much opinions, way too many words that don't build anybody up but just tear people down. This is what people need to see. They need to see hope and grace and love and peace and joy that is so attractive, that is so mesmerizing that they say, I want that. I want to know, how do you live like that? How do you not get into fights on social media? How do you not get baited into politics? How do you stay so positive in the midst of everything you're facing? How do you keep hope when everything seems down? How do you even think that there can be goodness in a year like 2020, right? That just kind of keeps rolling onto us as it goes. Church family, that's what our world needs to see. And look, what today is about, what this week is about, what we need to be about as a church, is that we need to be a church that is a living example of the gospel of Jesus to the world around us. And in case you're like, well, Joe, what do you mean by that? Let me be very clear. The gospel of Jesus is a gospel of peace and joy and righteousness. That's what it is. That's what Jesus himself says it is. That's what Paul says it is. It's not a gospel of Republican versus Democrat. It's not a gospel of materialism. It's not a gospel of prosperity. It's not a gospel of doctrinal purity. It is a gospel of peace and joy and righteousness. It's the gospel that says, look, I don't have everything right at all. And man, the outside of my house might look good, but if you saw what me and my kids do to the inside of my house, you wouldn't want to buy it, right? If you saw the room that we shove everything in when people come over, right? But man, let me tell you, what it stands on is firm. When we bought our house here in Starkville, we did all the things. We paid all the people to come look at the house to make sure that it was firm, that it was stable, right? And man, the guy that inspected it came out, and he gave me kind of a few lists of things that were wrong with the house I need to work on. He said, but man, he said, I don't know who built your house. He said, but I hadn't seen brick pylons and footings like that in a while. He said, this sucker's staying as long as you want it to stay. That's what we want people to see. If you came to my house, it's not perfect. Man, there are projects half done. Sarah's favorite joke is that I do 90% of 90% of the projects, right? I get 90% of 90% of the things done. There's always 10% undone at my house. There's always a room that we've cleaned the other part of the house, and Aaron has gone and destroyed that room. It's not perfect. Church family, we're not perfect. Jesus isn't asking us to be perfect. He's asking us to be a living example of his grace and his gospel and his joy and his peace and his righteousness in such a way that when the lost world sees it, they say, I want to know about that. That's what today is about. That's why today is so important. Look, no one's going to come and take your picture and put it in the paper today. And that's on purpose. But hopefully, someone is going to walk by. For those of you that are going to a school, if you're going to Sudeth, I can guarantee you someone's going to be there walking at some point around that playground that you're working on. And they may even ask you, hey, what are y'all doing here? Those of you that are going to be building picnic tables here and delivering them out, I guarantee you when those tables get delivered to the schools and the JL King Center, people are going to say, man, who built these? Why did they do so many of those at one time? For those of you that are writing notes for teachers and praying for teachers, you don't know the questions and the conversations it's going to offer. And what Peter says is this. He says, be ready in every season to give a reason. That when someone asks us, hey, why are you doing that? Why are you going? Why are you skipping class? And instead of going and making a trip or doing what you want to do on Labor Day weekend, why are you going down to Sweat in South Louisiana to help people? Where you can say, you know why? Because, man, what's been done for me is so great that it calls me to go out and to do for others. Because what has been done for me when I didn't deserve it tells me that I should go and try to help as many people as possible. That's why we do what we do. So here's what's going to happen. I'm going to pray for us. If you're joining us online, I hope that you'll join us in serving anywhere, whether it's in your neighborhood or in our city today. If you're here and you didn't sign up for a project, that's okay, but I need you to meet me right here up at the front. If Russell Carr or Andrew Nagel are out there in the overflow space and can hear me, I need to holler at you guys before y'all head off to Henderson Ward, so that doesn't affect anybody else, but y'all come see me as well. All right, and then church family, we're going to pray and we're going to go serve. All right, you have joy, you smile as you do it, you talk together, enjoy being together, but man, if anyone asks you, hey, what are we doing? Be ready to give a reason for the hope that is in you today.